Helen's hands shook holding that paintbrush, same tremor as when she'd signed retirement papers 6 months ago. 65 and suddenly invisible, until she overheard two teens in Auckland Art Fair. "Nah, that's not old lady art. That's alive." Their words stuck like gum under a gallery bench. Next morning, Helen stormed community center, demanded a canvas. Brushed strokes like she had something to prove, maybe to herself, maybe to a world that thought her story was over. By week's end, her son Helen's hands shook holding that paintbrush, same tremor as when she'd signed retirement papers 3 months prior. Back then, it felt like dropping an anchor into fog. Now, bristles hovered over blank canvas, mocking her with possibilities. That old fear slithered in, becoming another faceless shadow in Auckland's art fairs, all bright colors masking hollow purpose. She dabbed crimson, clumsy, like her first step into this community studio. 65 years young, yet joints creaked louder than her resolve. But then, memory flickered. That same brush had once sketched lopsided rainbows for grandkids, sticky fingers guiding her strokes. Not masterpieces, but joy. Weeks blurred into layered pigments. Morning smelled of turpentine and second chances. When organizers announced a show, Helen's gut clenched. What if fam saw her work and pitted, sweet retiree dabbling? Yet she submitted anyway, chuckling her own audacity. Opening night buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses. A stranger paused before her seascape, stormy blues melting into gold, and murmured, "Feels like hope." Helen's breath caught. That tremor? Gone. Hands steady as tide meeting shore. Turns out, purpose wasn't lost, it just needed new colors. And maybe, just maybe, a little glitter. Helen's hands shook holding that paintbrush, same tremor as when she'd signed retirement papers 6 months prior. Back then, it felt like an ending. Now, bristles tickled her palm, whispering beginning. Auckland's community center hummed around her, walls splashed with half-finished watercolors. Across room, a woman in paint-splattered overalls, mirror, instructor, flitted between easels like a honeybee. She dabbed cerulean onto canvas, then winced. Her sunset looked more like a melted lollipop. Mir appeared her shoulder. "First rule, cuz," she said, tapping Helen's wrist, "let brush dance. It's got more rhythm than you." She snorted, but loosened her grip. Colors bled into something softer, truer. Weeks blurred into a happy haze of turpentine and mishaps. Creator learned to embrace wobbles, like when she tripped over her smock's hem and face-planted into a tray of magenta. Mir called it performance art. Her fam back in Florida got daily snaps of her progress, a lopsided toy bird, a harbor scene where sailboats resembled drunken seagulls. Then came flyer for Ponsonby Art Fair. Mir slid it across table with a wink. "Time to show off, Nana." Helen's pulse spiked. But that night, staring blank canvas, she dipped her brush with fresh determination. Stroke by stroke, she painted not just landscapes, but her own reinvention, each bristle mark a tiny rebellion against invisibility. On opening night, Creator stood beside her display, heart-thumping. A toddler pointed her boldest piece, a koru unfurling in gold, and yelled, "Shiny fern." Laughter rippled through crowd. Later, a silver-haired gallery owner lingered, murmuring about raw energy. Helen grinned, rolling paint-streaked sleeves. That tremor in her hands? Gone. Now it was just momentum. Helen's hands shook holding that paintbrush, same tremor as when she'd signed retirement papers 6 months back. 65 years of being someone's boss, someone's go-to, someone's answer, and now? A blank canvas mocked her harder than her grandkids' TikTok dances. Auckland's winter light slanted through community center window, glinting off half-squeezed tubes of cerulean and burnt sienna. Creator stabbed a brush into murky water, scowling swirl of indecisive beige. This is why people take up golf, she thought, dry as Sahara. But golf didn't smell like linseed oil, didn't thrum with that reckless joy of making something from nothing. She'd signed up for art therapy on a whim, or maybe spite, after her daughter-in-law chirped, "Retirement's your time to relax, fam." Relax? Helen's spine stiffened. She'd built budgets, wrangled deadlines, survived 3 office mergers. Now she was supposed to, what? Knit? Binge crime procedurals? Week 3, her therapist slid a flyer across table, North Shore Community Art Show, open call. Helen's pulse did a cha-cha. But doubt slithered in. Who'd care about some retiree splotchy landscapes? Yet here she was, stubborn as a rusted lug nut, layering ochre over crimson until canvas hummed with something like courage. Her piece wasn't perfect, edges frayed, perspective wonky as a funhouse mirror. But when she hung it between a teen's neon graffiti and a septuagenarian's delicate ink birds, she grinned. Paintbrush hadn't just stirred color, it had clawed back a voice. Visitors paused her work, murmuring. One even snapped a photo. Later, sipping terrible instant coffee, Helen eyed her paint-splashed sneakers. Maybe purpose wasn't some grand finale, but this, showing up, messy and mortal, refusing to fade quietly. She dipped a brush into vermilion, bold as a battle cry. Canvas waited. So did she. Helen's hands shook holding that paintbrush, same tremor as when she'd signed retirement papers 6 months ago, like life had hit pause. But this wasn't resignation. This was rebellion. Sunlight streamed through Auckland's community center windows, glinting off jars of cerulean and crimson. Around her, easels stood like silent witnesses. A woman in a floral smock, half her age, twice her skepticism, eyed Helen's half-finished canvas, lips pursed. Amateur hour, that look said. Woman smirked, dipped brush into viridian, and slashed color across blank space. No more careful strokes. No more apologies. Memory flickered, grandkids calling her boring Nana, that neighbor asking if she'd taken up knitting yet. Knitting. She'd laughed then. Now she painted storms. Twist came golden hour. Some influencer, all neon nails and TikTok angles, snapped a pic of Helen's wild, swirling piece mid-creation. Didn't ask. Didn't need to. By midnight, Grandma Go trended. Comments flooded in, 65 and fearless, teach me to not care, even a Yas, queen from her baffled but proud grandson. Community art show day arrived. Floral smock gaped Helen's centerpiece, a towering canvas where chaos met calm, her shaky hands now a signature style. Crowd buzzed. Someone whispered late bloomer like it was a bad thing. She adjusted her paint-splattered scarf, thought, I'm writing my own story. Then, applause. Not polite. Thunderous. A gallery owner elbowed forward, business card gleaming. Floral smock. Stunned silent, then clapping hardest. Helen pocketed card, grabbed brush like a scepter. Fam, retirement just got a plot twist. Helen's hands shook holding that paintbrush, same tremor as when she'd signed retirement papers 6 months prior. But this time, bristles didn't betray uncertainty, they danced. Auckland's weekend art fair buzzed around her, all hand-dyed scarves and ceramic mugs, yet her booth stood out, not just for vibrant seascapes, but for how she guided curious visitors, nudging them toward blank postcards. Scribble something terrible first, she'd wink, terrible's where magic hides. Odd habit? She hummed ABBA mixing paints. Always dancing queen, never on key. By month 3, her garage studio birthed more than art, it birthed fam. Neighbors, once strangers, now squeezed between easels, laughing over botched watercolors. Margaret, 72, swore her cat portrait looked like a possum in a wig, but Helen framed it anyway. Authenticity beats perfection, she'd say, tapping her temple. Community show day arrived. Helen's centerpiece, a single paintbrush, gold-dipped, hovering over a canvas splashed with every student stroke, stole room. No one mentioned her age. They just saw her, curator of second acts, smuggler of joy. That brush? Once a tool. Now a baton. Grab your color, smear it bold today.